Get ready for the Squawking Eagles Podcast, the show that covers only the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hello, and welcome to the Squawking Eagles Podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Miguel and Mark. How's it going, fellas?
You can't see me.
Yeah, it's going. So much energy from Mark's side of the room there. So much energy. It's almost like we're at the press conference that Nick and Howie put on. How energetic that whole thing was.
No, we're still too early.
How energetic it was.
We got to wait another 45 minutes.
Yeah, that was such an energetic press conference.
Yeah. So
that I fell asleep and missed it entirely.
So we're going to dive into that a little bit. We're going to discuss the new conference championship games between Detroit and San Francisco and Kansas City and Baltimore. We also will discuss one Jason Kelce's appearance at the Buffalo Bills game. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we have a lot of...
I'm sorry. I think you meant the Buffalo Bills game at the Jason Kelce event.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that one.
Just making sure I understood what we're talking about. Same thing. Got it. Okay, cool.
Hosted by Taylor Swift.
Hosted by Taylor Swift, yes.
Yeah. And then we're going to talk about all the, I guess, the rumblings of who's going to be an OC for the Eagles coming up year. And then apparently we have a hiring of DC already. So we'll talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about what Nick does as head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, because he was asked that and his answer was comical. It was just comical. It just reminded me of Office Space when they're doing the interviews on Office Space. Have you ever seen Office Space, the movie?
Yeah.
They're like, what would you say you do here? So before we get started, you can follow us over on Instagram, Squawking Eagles Podcast. Go ahead and download the Lockerverse app and join the conversation over there. Also over on YouTube, Squawking Eagles Podcast. Also in our link, you can go to tpublic.com and purchase some merch. We put up some t-shirts there, and I'm going to try to keep putting some up every other week as long as I can come up with some ideas. All right, so let's dive into it. We just had this conference to end all press conferences. I guess it was because it was the year. That was the end of the year press conference where Nick and Howie they were half hour late, right? They came a half hour late and they did not answer any questions that we really wanted to be answered. They just kind of like skirted a lot of things, and they were vague. It was Mark. So Miguel, you watched it. Let me hear your take, because Mark fell asleep and didn't really watch it.
First of all, I thought I was rewatching the press conferences of Nick Sirianni, where he talked about the flower pot and
yes,
planting your seed, and I'm just they have, and then it also flashed back to like what the end of Doug Peterson run was, because I feel like what they're doing with Sirianni is what they were trying to do with Doug Peterson before he left. They were going to strip him of his coordinators and force him to hire. I don't know if Howie was going to do the hiring or if they were going to give Doug the opportunity to search for his own. But it doesn't seem that way this time around. It seems like Nick's getting his little share of choices there, but it really feels like they kind of just relegated him to a pawn. He doesn't feel like a head coach right now. I kind of feel as though they didn't have much options out there. They didn't want to go the Bill Belichick way. Harbaugh gets signed in San Diego. I feel like they just stuck. They said that let's just stick with Nick because it's a voice that they know in the locker room. Let's get in some new coordinators in here that are going to, now we know who's going to call the plays next season, because they have already established it from this press conference that Nick is not doing any play calling. So he's pretty much just a pawn that is making us. He's a supervisor. That's what he is.
Yes,
he's a supervisor. He's just watching people work.
Yeah, he said in the press. He said he goes in the press conference. I'll sit on the defensive conference. Yeah. I'll sit on this. I'll do this. I'll do that.
Like, you weren't doing that before. Like, why aren't you in these meetings? Like, why are you not a part of it? I don't like. Little was said in the press conference, but much was taken out of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they were vague about things, but you can see like the little details of what that front office or that coaching room looks like last season.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a lot to tell. It was almost like you can see that he actually did lose the locker room. If that is just kind of like moseying around doing stuff, he really wasn't involved. And if it's gonna be the same thing next year. I think this is just this very like. I want to hear what you have to say, Mark, but I just want to point out that could very well be his last season as the Eagles head coach, determining how this gonna turn out.
He's starting off the season on the hot seat, like
extremely, like 10.
Yeah, you start the season off. Start the first half of the season on the losing end. You're out of here. Like
I've got after I hear what Mark has to say, I got a question for you about that.
Okay, go ahead,
Mark. What do you think?
Now, I know a little over a year ago we were considering Fangio for D coordinator, but he couldn't wait until after everyone else was settled, so he took the job in Miami. I feel like there's been talks of him before around the area. I feel like we had discussed him as a coach years ago between all of our different coaching changes. I feel like his name was coming up.
Yeah.
When we started looking into him, I, in my head, immediately thought this is an interview year. I thought it's, hey, we've got someone that fills the seat of head coach for a year for the money. Let's have a D coordinator come in, that we wanted as a coach. It'll be an interview year and see how he does. He does well enough. Sirianni's gone and Fangio gets the seat.
I hope not.
I also hope not, but I just, there's this nagging feeling in my back that says, like, especially with what they've just done to Sirianni, is that he's a placeholder. And why wouldn't you want your next coach to be in-house already? If you know you're getting rid of your coach next year and you're not going to do it now, the only reason you're doing that is because you're trying to test out somebody. So, granted, there's rumor of the different OCs we're looking at. Not that I'm really a fan of the options I've heard either on that side.
I want to talk about that too.
So my only thought would be Fangio would be the one that would be I'm thinking that Laurie and Roseman are saying that's our next guy. Let's see if he can prove it. And that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I really hope not. I'm not even a fan of them bringing Fangio in, because what the fuck did he do in Miami that was so grand? He's a 70-year-old coach or so. He doesn't bring anything new to the table.
Well, I will in his defense. Multiple coaches have said that his schemes are some of the hardest to scheme against. And in the past, a lot of people have come from his tree and not done as well. And some people have complained about that, saying it's a broken system. But then at the same time, we all look at Belichick and say, how many people have come from his tree and failed miserably, but he kept doing really well. Sometimes the creator of the system is the one who does it best. And he has a good history of masking his plays better. He relies heavily on safeties. So we need to have some, like, I can't remember his name right now, and I apologize because my brain's broken. But he's whoever it was that got his torn leg at the end of the season, Brown. He's got to come back with a vengeance. I don't think that we can continue to rely on Blankenship. Nothing against him. I think he's a great player. I think between his size, I just don't think he's going to survive. I think he's going to be. You gotta find something to go in there.
That's fine. That's players that they can draft and they can get in free agency, trade for.
But I'm saying, particularly for Fangio style defense, you're going to need it, and you're going to need it now.
Yeah, but what did Fangio do? Fangio just had the equally great collapse as the Eagles did this year. His defense didn't do that good in the end of the season.
They were 11-6 at the end of the season, just like us.
I do believe they had a lot more injuries than we did on defense, so I will say that. They lost a lot more players.
I'll give you that. I just don't see anything dynamic that he brings to the table to make me think that this defense is going to look so much different from anybody else's defense.
I will say, in that hand, I'm not saying I do not believe it is going to be an obscene change. I do believe it'll be. I want to believe, and I do believe it'll be a more consistent and less vulnerable defense than ours was, mainly with the change to Patricia. I've talked about this a few times with a few people, and I look back at it. Look, I understand some, and I talked about earlier in the season, I still don't fully believe in the hate for Desai. It was his very first time ever as a DC. I think part of it has to go with the fact that we were in the Super Bowl last year, that we expected better. But to have a lead coordinator on both sides of the ball, I knew all season there's going to be some hiccups. The fact that he made the adjustments that he did, our second half defense was pretty good during his reign. Yeah. We made adjustments. We beat the Bills. We beat the Chiefs. We beat Miami.
Yeah.
So we just got rid of these guys, and now we're going to bring in Miami's D coordinator. And like I said, I think there's going to be a little more consistency. Hopefully, mainly, if nothing else, because I hope they're just going to stick with one guy throughout the season. Don't get me wrong. There's times where I call for people's heads. I mean, you guys heard me call for Brian Johnson all season long.
Yeah. Well, we walked into that press conference with no offensive or defensive coordinators. They and talked about anything about signing Fangio yet, because he had just
gotten released
by the Dolphins. So in my mind, they went into that press conference not knowing who they were going to have, and they signed him quickly.
Yeah, which I know he was there for us for the Super Bowl, and I know that he apparently was well received.
He was there all season last season.
True. In part, and I heard he was well received in the locker room and in the coaching and like in the facilities. But yeah, there were not even. I feel like the moment that he was announced, like Miami was parting ways, it was already a deal. Yeah. Like it was like the Eagles are going to get him and no one else. We're not going to look around. We're not going to, And it's. I think this is a almost political thing in sense where it's like I feel, and
is
not going to touch the world of politics, but just saying in my mind, the way a lot of things happen with politics is that something happens on this side and there's a pendulum reaction to the other side rather than like, hey, we should do this in the middle. Remember, and I think having a young rookie coordinator and all of a sudden we explode going, all right, we need an old trusted coordinator.
Yeah. See, I'm not happy with signing Fangio as their defensive coordinator. I would have liked them to talk to, this is going to be crazy, but Ron Rivera, I would have liked them to talk to him.
I was settled for that.
Yeah.
But just real quick, Mike, just a flashback to the end of last season. Yeah. Remember when, not the end of last season, the end of last season probably was, when Gannon left, there was news that came out that the players wanted one to become the coach, but Sirianni didn't want him to become that coach. He ended up ultimately leaving or got fired.
He left and went to Baltimore.
Right.
Weird. Baltimore's doing really well this year.
Mark, you just mentioned the pendulum. This is where the pendulum swung to the opposite side because they thought they were going to get Desai, who was going to be the genius defensive guy, and it backfired on them. Instead of getting the guy that everybody else wanted, Nick or whoever made the decision went with Desai. And that's fucking, it's the mess right now. This conference just tells me next season, this is the beginning of the tailspin. Like this is going to go off the tracks.
It could very well. Like I think that they're panicking, and that's why they got Fangio quickly. They panicked. I would have liked them to talk to Wink Martindale. I really did. I like that guy. He was a great defensive coordinator. And
so I'm going to say something. I'm going to get hate for it, but I'm going to say it anyway.
No, that's not surprising.
So many times I've mentioned this, but it's going to, for the first time, I'm going to make this comparison. How many years in our life have the Cowboys been paper tigers? They've had a phenomenal, and they just don't have the coaches to put it all together. Right. I think I by the fact I don't believe in Dak, but you can't tell me that team in the past 5-6 years has not been rife with talent. I think we're copying them right now. I think we have the players to do it, and we are just struggling at the head. We're the snake right now.
Oh, well, apparently Go ahead. No, go ahead, Miguel. Go ahead.
I was just going that to your point was that you wanted to bring in. You were just saying something about Sidney Brown coming back and Chip and all that stuff. I think those are great players. They just need the right coaching, and the coaching that we have right now is just.
Apparently, we had the coaching with Steichen and Gannon. Apparently, we had the coaching, and they got picked.
Oh, I definitely see. I never had an issue with Steichen. I had an issue with Gannon. I know the defense was good, but I didn't like the way he made things.
Yeah, but apparently he managed it well enough. Like it looked
well. Not the end of the season though. Not when you jump ship like that.
That's a different story. That's a whole other thing we talked about.
I look at it. Not even just it. I mean, you look around at all. Like our team, we have some veterans who are top of their class. We've got rookies that have so much potential, and I think that's what you're just saying, Miguel. Like Like not just Brown and Blankenship. We talked all season. Ringo, Ricks, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis still young, Nakobe Dean still young. We have a thriving, youthful team, and we're wasting AJ Brown. We're wasting Devontae Smith. We just gave DeAndre Swift his best year, and that felt wasted. Like
he won't be back. He
needs to be back. That is to piss me off if we don't re-sign him.
Prepare yourself.
I'm going to be. What I mean, explain to me in one sentence why you wouldn't re-sign him.
There's no reason why I wouldn't.
Okay, but there's one reason why the NFL, why the Eagles wouldn't re-sign a top tier player like that.
He's an aging running back.
My ass. The man's like 24, 25.
Howie Roseman thinking.
Howie Roseman can suck my nut because he hasn't drafted a good running back in years. Sean McCoy is the last good running back that we have had, and it has never worked going back to, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a big proponent that running backs are turnover high.
Sure.
There's a theory out there that says that Howie kind of like initiated Swift getting less carries so that he didn't have to pay him at the end of the year.
That doesn't surprise me. This does not surprise
me. Where did you hear that?
Keep in mind.
Where did you hear that?
I'm gonna Miguel
from Squawking Podcast. I don't know who said it.
Oh man, Miguel's gonna slap me for this, but this has been happening since the Chip Kelly era.
Again, still makes his way onto this podcast
only because it's relevant. All right, Chip came in, and because we were having a nightmare with our system, we got rid of Rose.
Podcast without the Chip's name.
It's your fault.
Over under how many times?
Howie Roseman was not trusted and moved to the side, but he was not let go.
No, he was sent to the broom closet.
We let go of Reed. However, Roseman was still buddy. Chip does his thing, and as I mentioned the other week, first year playoffs, second year stumbling block, not well received, but he makes the changes that he thinks we need. Philadelphia has a riot, and Roseman goes, Lori, the fans don't like this. Lori, you shouldn't let him have all this power. He's ruining
Don't rewrite the history, my guy. Don't rewrite the history. It was the locker room that disliked him.
I know, but I'm saying all of it. Like Philly had an issue with him. I'm not saying that it was just the locker room. I'm just a fan. I know the locker room didn't like the way he was doing things too. I know that. I'm not going to say they didn't because he was so used to things being like, "Hey guys, this is how we do things. You do them, we win." And the players were like, we're not kids. We're adults. We don't give a shit about winning. We care about getting paid, and we're just assholes. And that's where the difference became in. But how he kind of weaseled his way in and went, "Hey man, that players don't like it. The fans don't like it. Get rid of them. Let me come back as GM." Okay, that happened, and then all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, the culture. We took that culture and then we won. But how he keeps having his fingers in it, I don't like this. I don't like that. Let's do this. Some trades great. Some drafts great. Most of the time, though, he's not bringing in the right players. How many times now are we picking up free agent players that are failing? We're not getting the players we need here at the end. We're not signing the players in the offseason that you want to see us sign. We're players you want to keep. No call to Kaiser White. No call to TJ Edwards. Letting CJ walk. The fact that even now there's the rumor about like DeAndre Swift, a running back who puts up the yards he just did with the lack of carries he did. Unreal. And you're going to let that go? Get out of here. Like, you literally are stupid.
Right. Well, what you're talking about is an entirely different episode of this podcast. We have a whole episode.
You're right. I'll leave you.
I just want to talk about coordinators because.
Okay. I just want to ask a quick question.
Go ahead.
Boston Scott is older than all the others, right? We know he's probably going to be out of here. All right. Gainwell is a fish, right? So you let go of Swift. We're not keeping Penny. Are we drafting a running back this year?
Not in the first round.
No.
So are you going to say that we're more likely to pick up an aged running back again?
No, they'll pick somebody up off a free agent market that's young and got
young free agent running back?
Yeah, they'll cycle somebody.
Yeah, Austin Eckler.
Saquon Barkley?
They're not going to go that old. No, they're not going to go that high either.
All I know is that I don't like some of the personnel changes, both on the team and around the team. Right. And it's starting to go back in my head. This that was been going off for half a decade or more now. Roseman, let him work the trades. Let him work the phone line for the trades and lock him in that room and never let him out again. I think the rest of the time, I don't like what he's doing.
Not going to happen because he is too friendly and buddy-buddy with Jeffrey Lurie. Jeffrey Lurie and him they're inseparable. I don't see Harry Roseman going in there.
Not only that,
I'm putting the big stick. It's Roseman.
I disagree. How that draft after Chip, Howie Roseman brought in Joe Douglas, and Joe Douglas helped him with that draft, and that's how we got those good players because he had a good eye for talent.
Douglas definitely did. Look what he did with the Jets.
Right. And, Howie just needs that football eye. I don't think he makes a decision himself. He brings in people that help him make that decision. And I feel like he does an adequate job because there's a lot of GMs out here that do horrible jobs. And we've seen that across the board a bunch of times. I just worry that they're not going to put, or better yet said, that they're trying to do two birds with one stone, right? So you're already pigeonholing Nick Sirianni into this supervisory position, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hire an OC that's probably going to be his replacement, which is going to cause division amongst the coaching staff and amongst the players. Like, that's what I think they're in the next OC based on who they think can take Nick's place next season.
Yeah, you think they're anticipating Nick to have this team flop? Like, this is the question I was going to ask you, is that if this team starts 0-3 next season, does Nick Sirianni get fired after 0-3?
No, but the talk is louder. The talk is loud.
It's loud now. It was now, Miguel.
It's
all I know is I'm going to stand by that. If Sirianni goes, I think Roseman's got to go.
I just don't think Jeffrey Lurie is going to take that gamble to himself looking bad in the NFL culture's eye, because you hired a guy that you thought was the next, NFL genius who has the same brain talent as the guy that's in Miami. You know what I mean? So you don't want to take that look. After 3 years, at one Super Bowl, he's got a 37-17, whatever the record is.
It's a good record.
How are you going to walk away from that? You're going to look like a fool. Like,
I know, but that's the talk. I was listening to the Fan this today, and Tyrone Johnson was saying how many games does he lose where he's got to go when they start the season?
If he goes 0-4, he's out of here. 2-2, he stays. 1-3, it's shaky.
It's shaky. Like Gary said, he's going to start this season on the hot seat already. Yeah. Now, Dave Fangio, who has been around the league for a long time, I would have liked this. Like I said, Ron Rivera, Wink Martindale. I would have liked to see these guys come in and at least interview. Now they're going to start interviewing OCs, and who they've brought in so far is Kellen Moore, who was the OC in Dallas 2 years ago. He was in the
Chargers last year.
He was not a great quarterback, and he's not that good of an offensive coordinator either.
Touch on this? Because for some reason, people in the world are very happy about Kellen Moore.
Tell me why. Tell me what it is.
Let me just bring this in real quick. So he was the coordinator for Dallas in 2022.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, the worst year of Dak Prescott's career. The fewest yards, the most picks. Coordinator for the Chargers. Now, granted, Herbert's season's cut short due to injury. Statistically speaking, the worst season of his career. Now, it's a lot younger career, a lot shorter career.
Still.
But you're talking about a kid who has put up he had a season of 5,000, a second season of almost 5,000 yards. This is the first year he didn't throw for 4,000. And even with the additional 4 games he missed, he might not have hit that number. He should have, but it would have been really low. You're talking about a kid who has never had less than 25 touchdowns a season. I mean, he's an arm like no other. And I understand the talent around him is not great, but you bring this coordinator in and he doesn't do well. And Dallas brought a coordinator in on a quarterback who already wasn't great, and they made him worse. I don't want him around Hurts.
No. Now, another guy has come up is Cliff Kingsbury, because he was with USC this past year. No, I don't like that either, because he really wasn't successful when he was at Arizona. Another guy is the quarterback coach from Houston, the Houston Texans. I can't remember his name.
He looks so much like Brian Johnson.
I know. He does look a lot like Brian Johnson. The one guy that I hope they bring in, and I might sound crazy, but Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy is.
You think he's going to What?
Why he leave? Ron Rivera leave? He hasn't been given the head coaching job at Washington,
which shocks me. It
right?
Shocks me.
Right? Why not bring him here? You know,
I still think he'd be available. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I just don't imagine he's gonna be available.
One is probably a lateral move that he probably sees no.
Well, that and they can block that.
They got better talent. Philly Eagles have better talent than the Commanders do. Ron Rivera is gone. They want all new coming in there. He's not going to be the head coach there, which is it's a shame for that guy. He probably definitely deserves it. But there's still 2 openings left. It's the Commanders. Their openings are still open, and we're the Commanders. Like if Barrick McMenemy's there, how come he hasn't been acknowledged as head coach yet? I'm just saying. Do you guys
realize that now you're mentioning it, that the Chargers vacancy has also been filled?
Jim Harbaugh.
And that should be interesting to see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh. And then the Falcons, they signed the Buccaneers offensive coordinator as their head coach.
Yep. I know everyone's talking about the Cincinnati OC. Like that was everyone's like, that was like the lead. I can't remember his name right now, but that was like top guy for everybody for a head coach. And I don't even think he's on the radar anymore. No, which is crazy.
No. So the candidates I think are out there. They're not as impressive as I don't know.
Weird. You know who's not being talked about at any team right now?
Who?
Chip Kelly.
Brian Johnson. No, Chip Kelly is being talked about. Chip Kelly actually is on the list for every one of those teams still.
I heard OC. Yeah, as far as
Brian Johnson's head coaching.
I'm not even looking at OC right now.
He's done now. Like they were waiting to fire him until he got a job, but then when Carolina's was taken by somebody else, that was it for him. And they said, all right, he's fired. So they had him before the press conference. That was it.
That whole thing was weird because it's like when they brought him in, he's Jalen's buddy. He teaching him Jalen. They have this good friendship. They got this good thing. And then when they asked him, did you talk to Jalen about firing Brian Johnson? And they kind of were vague about it. Like the coaches, the players don't make the decisions. We do. They were very like nonchalant. Pretty much they should have just said, no, we didn't. We just made a decision without talking to them because we feel like that it was too close for him to be involved in our decision making.
I mean, in one sense, like I that statement involved, like, they should be involved. Those players should have I didn't like the hire in the first place. I don't care if he's buddy, but I've got great friends that I like to hang out with from time to time. When it comes to my business, they're not working the same place as me. Not just because I like them or because I them. If I need I need something built and I know of some buddies in construction, I'll give them a call before I call anyone else on the list. But I gotta know they know what they're doing. I'm not just gonna be like, hey, I know you have worked your whole life as a paper pusher, salesman, whatever it is. I need a brand new aquarium built in my basement. I'd like you to do it. That make no sense. But I feel like that's how the Eagles have been recently, and I don't like it.
Well, I think, they said whoever they're going to bring in, they're going to bring a new scheme. It's not going to be mixed playbook anymore. It's going to be a whole new scheme, a whole new look on life for Jalen. There's a lot of things that coming out of the locker room this week, actually. Like Britton Covey said a lot of things, and then some of the things that they originally said that Covey said weren't actually true. And they said that originally Britton Covey said that it was hard to talk to Jalen Hurts because he was scared of him. And then maybe 2 or 3 days later, he tweeted out saying that was not really the case and that Jalen Hurts is a really good guy to talk to. And he talks and spends time with everybody on the team. I hate when these things start coming out and what are you supposed to believe? Like, who are you supposed to believe that, did he really say it to somebody and now he's just covering his tracks? There was talks that Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson's friendship was soured towards the end of the season.
Does that shock you?
It's not to me. It's a shame. It's a real shame that had to happen. So for somebody who's known Jalen since he was 15 years old to have a relationship sour, it's a shame. Yeah, it's a real shame.
Maybe you shouldn't work together. Maybe you don't mix business and pleasure.
Yeah.
Unless you're a billionaire, then you
that's
do
why in American workplace, it's not good to have your best friend as your supervisor or your superior in any shape, way, or form. What gets done?
I know,
nothing.
Hey, you want to keep him? You want to keep him as the quarterback's coach? Fine.
Every criticism gets taken personally when that happens. You know what I mean? It'd be an attack on you, and this is not. But
Now, Mark, I got another question for you. You said that they were bringing in Vic Fangio to possibly replace Nick Sirianni next year if he
back of my head feels that way. Yeah.
What if they brought in? That's the same scenario. Bringing the OC in who will replace Nick Sirianni, and that OC is Lincoln Riley. What if they bring Lincoln Riley in?
While I see your point, I don't think Lincoln Riley is going to take an OC job in the NFL
because he's already head coach in college.
He's at a highly prestigious college. Yeah. It's like Saban. Saban tried it once, didn't like it, went back, and now is going down in the records book as a retired now as one of the greatest coaches of all time when it comes to college football.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of college coaches that like to make that jump, they only make that jump when they reach that. I mean, look at Harbaugh. You reach a pinnacle, head coach to OC, even if it is the next league up, doesn't feel like a promotion.
You're right.
It's just how it is.
We touched on this last week, and I think the NFL should switch or shift into treating head coaches like they treat quarterbacks. Bring them in under somebody, let them learn their way for a year, and then if they achieve what they're supposed to achieve, can you have them in a head coaching position?
Are you saying that the New England Patriots did something right again? It's Rod Mayo, my guy, and I give him the right personnel.
But Gerard Mayo didn't come out of college. He came from NFL, being an NFL player.
Yeah, but then he spent a few years working with the team as an assistant, and now he's there.
That's fine. But I'm saying, like, if you're coming straight from college, if you're known as
I see what you're saying, a college coach. Yeah, but the college coaches don't want to do it. You have to remember, though, some of these college coaches make more money than some of these NFL coaches.
And I agree. Look at the success to failure rate on college coaches coming into the NFL. It's not very high.
If I'm not, isn't this Harbaugh's second stint in the NFL?
Correct. He was with San Francisco before.
Yeah, and that didn't end too well, if I remember correctly.
I think he's only taken this job because he was going to get suspended by.
Well, Michigan was about to get investigated for.
Yeah, it was going to get real messy.
Same thing that Chip Kelly was happening in Oregon before he left.
What?
Yeah. Well, we didn't forget about that lawsuit that he ran away from.
He wasn't getting investigated for cheating.
I mean, it wasn't cheating, but it was something.
I don't remember it.
What was it? I have to look it up.
Enlighten me, please.
Yeah, there was.
For the weeks, we're going to probably be looking for a OC. I would actually like them to pick one quickly because, the draft right around the corner.
So
the things are going to start going fast, and people are going to need to be signed and all.
I say before we touch on the draft.
Oh, we're not going to talk about the draft now. We're not.
I know. Well, I know, but I would like to do now, real quick, if you guys don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to list off the somewhat short list of free agents and get your guys' opinion. Just the Eagles Eagles free agents.
Too early for that because we still got teams that are in the playoffs right now. Like
no, I'm talking about what players would you want to see back next year
on the Eagles?
Yeah, Eagles players you want to see back next year. That's all I'm leading the list is just short Eagles list.
Okay,
Kelsey.
Yes. Well, yeah, he's he just restructured his contract too to take some money off the cap. He could come back next year. It's still open.
I would take him. Cox.
No.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not paying him $10 million again. For what? He did good. Don't get me wrong. He did what he was supposed to do.
He did.
But he's a bit older, and those young guys need to, pick up whatever Cox is not bringing.
I wouldn't be against that. BG, Brandon Graham.
I love the guy. I have to have him back.
I would like to have him back. I don't know if I want him back as a player though. I think I would want him back as an assistant coach.
I would love him as an assistant coach. Just saying.
That's probably not out of the realm. It could still happen.
Hold on. If Kelsey retires and in 5 years says, I want back in, coach?
Yeah, take Stoutland.
Sure.
Oh, I would love that. This one I know I'll be probably alone on. Mariota.
I'd bring him back.
Because you need a quality backup.
Yeah.
Agreed. Swift.
100% they come back.
I would love to have him back, but I don't know if he pays that money.
Keep in mind he made a whopping $2 million last year.
Yeah.
And that our entire Eagles backfield made less than Miles.
And Miles Sanders played less games too.
I think I saw a stat. I have to check it again. I think they had a stat that said yards per dollar. I think it was Swift was like number one. I'll double check that.
Yeah,
but it was
really good. Yeah.
Boston Scott.
I think we got to move on from Boston Scott.
Yeah.
He'll be 29 by next season.
Yeah,
they didn't use him much, and I feel like he can get a better spot somewhere else.
Yeah.
Zach Cunningham.
Yes. We got to.
Bring him back.
We need consistency at linebacker.
Justin Evans.
Yeah.
No.
Shaquille Leonard.
No.
So Opeta, guard.
No.
Not because we can pick somebody up in free agency the draft.
I feel like we'd re-sign him. He's only 27. I feel like with Stoutland, I think he was setting up where he could. I think we might keep him.
What's our cap at this year?
It's supposed to be at. I think it's at 39 now.
We got some room.
Yeah, there's a lot of room.
And by the end, backup, he's not going to make much. Penny.
No,
he was a waste of money the whole season. Right. He was waste.
The one guy that I called out one time and it worked, and then I got screwed over by the Eagles not running the football by 1 yard. I'm gonna lay Zacchaeus.
Yes,
I think it's worth bringing him back. Sure.
Yeah.
Nick Morrow.
No.
Like I said, we need linebackers. We got to have that consistent
linebackers, but I think we need new linebackers. I think
I don't know if they're. I don't know if they're going to adjust. I don't. The way that Howie does it, I don't think he's going to be to draft a linebacker first round. I would love him to drive first round linebacker.
No,
he won't. He won't. He won't.
No, I think there's
Trotter Jr.
A lot of analysts. I know, but he's not. We're almost done there. Yeah. I don't remember. It was one of our backup tight ends, Aquabunam.
They got him from Cleveland, I think, right? They got
him for like nothing.
Yeah, he was supposed to be pretty good. He really didn't see anything from him. That was a problem.
Question: who's our punter by the end of the season? Was it still Brandon Mann?
Brandon Mann, yeah.
All right, we're bringing him back.
Yeah,
we don't have a punter. We don't.
Probably.
Jack Driscoll. That's a big one.
Yeah,
I would made chump change.
I know. I would keep him because I'm not a big fan of that guy. So
okay. If last three, I want to see your take on these three, particularly the last two. Sean Bradley, linebacker.
Yeah, he's got to go.
Okay. Kez Watkins.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with him too.
Yep.
See ya.
Jack Stoll, backup tight end.
He was okay, serviceable. But that's a dime a dozen. Those kind of serviceable tight ends are a dime a dozen.
I'll tell you what. I've been thinking about this in my head. I know we'll get to the draft later. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're not a top 10 pick. We're not getting a top 10 player.
No, we're at 22, I think, right now.
There's like the trade we would have to do would be ridiculous. I'm not going to bother. However, just because we mentioned him, we mentioned Harbaugh going to the Chargers.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that Chargers first pick. They have a chance to draft like one of three. Like there's like three key positions they could draft there. I think they're going to go look. There's O-lineman. Now, granted, a lot of their O-linemen were hurt this year, so their O-lineman could be fine next year. I'm going to say receiver because while, they drafted receiver last year, Quentin Johnson sucked. Mike Williams is fragile, and Keenan Allen's old. But the big one for me, and I want to keep an eye out on him because we're talking tight ends, Brock Bowers. You get a stud tight end who, you're talking about a guy who's coming out with like a Kittle-esque, an Ertz-esque, like that mix of I can catch the ball and block. That'd be a huge upgrade, and I think Harbaugh would utilize that because he utilizes tight ends a lot. That could be dangerous. Back to the Eagles. Let's move on.
Thank you, Mark. I'm looking forward to our draft podcast. We have a lot to say. I know you have a lot to say. We're going to have a lot to say about that.
I love college football, man.
Make sure we get Mark an oxygen tank so he can talk all about the college stuff.
All right, so I want to talk about Jason Kelsey's performance. Would you call it performance that he did at
Yeti?
Right? Big Yeti?
Hold on. Quick question.
Yeah.
Before we talk about that, It's another Jason Kelsey moment, though, discussing our coordinators and the future of the Eagles.
Yes.
I'd like to share it with you guys.
Okay.
Let me pull it up here.
It's like a good brother that Jason Kelsey was. He went and visited. Is this what you're going to show us? You're going to show us? What are you going to show us?
I'm pulling up.
Okay. he goes and watches the game in Buffalo. Watches his brother play against the Bills
out there with Bills Mafia parking lot.
He started out. He did a shot from a bowling ball. Right? Mm-hmm. How many guys can you say I did a shot from a bowling ball? I've never done that before. And then he goes and proceeds to. Apparently, he told his wife that he was probably going to go shirtless at one point in the day at that game, and she goes, "No, you are not." And he goes, "I guess I am." So, I guess a few millies is shirtless.
I believe the 16.
16 Millers. Was it Labatt Blue or Miller Lights?
Labatt Blues. 16 Labatt Blues. 16
Labatt Blues. Labatt Blues good. They go on pretty quickly. For a big dude like that, apparently it was barely like a dropping up, and with a touchdown, a score. He's shirtless, screaming out box with his wife and Taylor Swift in the background. Jumps out of the box, parties with the fans, brings a young to the box window, and he become a star amongst the Buffalo Bills. There, it's like ridiculous.
I think he's about to become a star across the NFL, and he deserves to be.
He is. He's a star, man. He's a real star. Right.
I'm going to play this little clip. This is obviously the brothers on their New Heights podcast, and Jason is discussing the Green Bay game against the Cowboys, and what he says a few seconds after I press play here, I think it's going to resonate well, and I think it might be a subtle shot, personally. So I just want to let it play for you guys.
Okay.
Right. Can you? Oh, I'm on the wrong button.
They were just so wide open that it felt like they were throwing it all game long.
And this is what, I mean,
in reference to Jordan Love having wide open receivers,
dude,
it just opens up so much more.
Aaron Jones,
especially that
back there,
style of offense, because LaFleur comes from the Shanahan tree, and like all of that stuff. If you can't the run, it's just inevitable that all that other stuff is going to be open.
Crazy, weird. So just so you guys know, just a little reference to what I said before, Travis was talking, they're going on about how Jordan Love was just having a phenomenal game, and Travis felt like he was throwing it 30, 40 times. And they found out Jordan Love only threw the ball like 16 times.
Yeah.
But he had so many yards, so many times people were open. Mm-hmm. And Jason pops up on that saying, yeah, because they ran the ball and they ran the ball well. And when you run the ball well, it's hard to stop anything else. You open up these other plays, and it's I feel like that's what I'm saying this whole year, past 2 years. And I feel like not only is it like obvious, but in my opinion, this conversation is subtly an attack at like, this is easy football, guys. It's almost like that clip from Good Will Hunting, where he's like, this is so easy for me that like, like the fact that you don't get it kills me. It's like, and I think that's something when they first started their podcast, he's talking about the QB sneak. And then we started, he's like, it's so successful. Why don't we do it more? So we did it. And now it's like, I'm going to talk about this game, but let me pound home, run the ball, win the game.
Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And I'm hoping, this is what the hope is, that they bring back Swift. They bring a coordinator in who is a run heavy coordinator, because that's what you have to do. You got to run heavy.
Everyone's passing.
I know, but that's what you got to change. The game has to, we're talking about pendulums. It's got to swing back to the whole, run first option. It has to.
Except that doesn't help the entertainment business make money.
I know.
Because it's boring.
Right. But it's not boring for everybody. It's not boring.
Mass populace.
Yes.
Just a quick question, guys. So, like, all right, we already know Vic Fangio's gotten hired, right? So we know DC's already. If you're Jeffrey Lurie, are you going with older, experienced coordinators, or you want to go more youth-driven, more modern style of playing, or more what's the word I'm looking for? More dynamic play. Like I figured the older OCs are gonna give you what Mark is looking for. Run the ball. They're gonna have those basic offenses. They're gonna be consistent. Whereas younger OC, you're dealing in the realm of the unknown. Is that offense gonna work? Is that defense gonna work? Where do you guys lie on this? Me, if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm thinking about picking if I'm keeping Nick and I want to fix Nick, I want to get him experienced OC coordinators. and let him learn from them, because older coordinators are not going to get picked at the end of the year. You know what I mean? You bring in a Ron Rivera, you bring in a Chip Kelly to do OC. You know what I mean? They're not going anywhere. Maybe somebody might give Chip another chance. I think he's towards the end of his career.
Mm-hmm.
I figure we can use him like Johnson, where Jim Johnson was here for the last 7-8 years of his career, and he left a dynamic defense.
Mm-hmm. I would like to see that, man.
Now you said it. Now I got to ask, what would Philly's response be if they signed Chip as the OC?
You know those phone polls.
Imagine they do, and then all of a sudden next year we're like, between him and Fangio, we're 13-4, 14-3, and got the Super Bowl in our face. Like, we just right through the playoffs. Offense looks great, defense looks great. How would the fans feel? I feel like the fans would be so torn in their anxiety and hatred.
Mark, but you said the key word there. If they win you the Super Bowl, all that bad history gets erased. Everything gets forgotten.
True. Well, I said if you win, I'm saying you get almost there. But I just want to see how they feel if they got us right there again.
Winning erases a lot.
Question, Miguel. I think you've already gone the route of young OCs with Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson. It was 50-50, right? So you did really well with Shane, and you didn't do so well with Brian Johnson. I think we go to an older route. And that's why I said Eric Bieniemy, because he's been around. He has had success. He is a guy. And he is older, dynamic too, because he does some interesting play calling. I don't know if that happens, but I would go with an older guy.
And he taught Mahomes everything that he knows, pretty much. Yeah. You know what I mean? What can hurt? What hurt can be brought about? What bring him for
nothing? Nothing can hurt. Nothing. It would. Jalen Hurts. This is a wild statistic I read. Jalen Hurts had. Let me just boot it up here real quick. Oh man, where'd it go?
You're fine. Oh god.
There's two things I want to say. It's just I can't believe this came up either in the feed here, but this is how lucky and unlucky he was. He had 20 turnovers, fourth most, but he had a 2.3 turnover worthy play rate, which was the sixth lowest. So what you're saying is that he had the fourth most turnovers, but the turnovers really weren't like his fault because of the worthiness of those turnovers. I think that is a remarkable feat to be able to have that on both ends. Usually, if you have the most turnovers, you're going to have the worst rate of turnover. But he had the opposite, and you can't fault the guy for his turnovers. And I say that now because someone put out that if the Eagles and Jalen Hurts decide they both need a fresh start, his contract structure makes it very easy to trade him. Mike Florio said that for Pro Football Talk. Are you serious?
Well, that was another talk up on WSP.
I can't believe that.
They said that maybe this franchise, maybe Howie and Jeffrey see that Jalen's not the quarterback that they thought they were, and maybe they're going to be looking for an out.
I can't go down that road again. Jalen was a different player this year than he was last year. Agree or disagree? Agree. There's only we the season started that he was going to take a couple steps back. He took a few more than we thought he was going to take. I think he was handcuffed. I think he had too much involvement in the play calling. I think he lost his confidence with Brian Johnson after that San Francisco 49ers game. I think that's where it happened. Next year is going to be a good tell. If he's successful, then we found out, oh great, it was Brian Johnson's problem, it was fault. And we're going to be good. That's why we need to bring in an older guy, because if you bring a younger guy in that's closer to Jalen's age, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be hard. He needs that father figure. He needs that to go forward. Yeah, I don't know. Shane Steichen probably wasn't a father figure, but he was older. He's older than Brian Johnson.
I think if you bring in someone young, I think the other problem is not only are you gonna have that power dynamic, but I think especially for a younger college coach, what is their goal? To make a splash and prove their point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we saw Brian Johnson try that this year, and it went up in flames. Look, you got to go with what works. It might not be flashy. We might not end up with the number one stats at the end of the year, but who cares when you're holding the damn trophy?
Yeah.
Look, here's something I brought up. I've been thinking about too. The Chiefs were not the Chiefs of last year, right? Both us and the Chiefs took some steps back. But you want to know something funny? In the last few games of the season, Isaiah Pacheco had against the Bengals 130 plus yards. Didn't play the Chargers because they were benching everyone. Had like 90 yards against the Dolphins, 90 yards against the Bills. It's crazy how if you look at the games where they lose, he's not running or he's not running the ball much.
Right, because
it stands even with Pat Mahomes.
Yeah,
need a run game.
But I feel like quarterback play this year around the league has been down. It's not just Jalen. I feel like Mahomes wasn't Mahomes this year. Burrow, he injured, but even
a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of injuries.
When he played, he didn't look right. Herbert didn't look right. He was always injured. The only one that's really looked good this year is Lamar Jackson, and he's in the AFC Championship game.
Lamar Jackson
and he's been healthy. He's been healthy all year.
Exactly. You know what? I'm not going to say he looked great, but Goff has played really well this year.
Yeah.
Him and Detroit as a whole have looked really good. I'll say this. I don't care. I'm pulling for them the rest of the way.
Yeah.
I want to see. I think Campbell deserves it. I think Ra deserves it. I think that team has fought through the trenches long enough.
Mm-hmm.
I will say they're a scary team moving forward. I said that, I think, a year ago. I think at the podcast before we played them, I was like, "Oh, it's Detroit, easy game." I was like, guys, y'all missing out on the fact they have some young stars. Swift was one of them at the time, and he torched us. Yep. I said, "This is a frightening team 2 years from now." Hello,
yeah, you're right. You're not wrong. I remember you talking that way.
I'm really glad with the podcast because I feel like I've had conversations that we have here with other people, and so many times in my life, we never had that conversation. Well, guess what? It's recorded now. Proof, I went back and went, I did say this. This is how I do feel.
Yeah, go back and listen to that episode. You definitely have said that. All right, so let's talk about this weekend's games, the conference championships. We've got Detroit and San Francisco. I'm going with Detroit. Mark's Detroit.
I'm going with Detroit, but you got to know the script is going San Fran.
Well, of course it is. Yeah, it is going.
Detroit deserves it.
If you go goes, it's going to be San Francisco.
Can we talk about that real quick? Because I had a coworker come at me this week like that. Oh, it's written in the script. It's prophesized. Yeah. Do we know the exact date that those logos come out? Because from my argument with my coworker, he said that they come out beginning of the year.
That logo came out as soon as the Super Bowl 57 ended.
Okay. So here's my question: was it colored already? It was.
Yes, right. I put out with the actual logo on it.
My theory was that they might come out with the design because they know where the location is going to be and all that. The colors get filled in, I think, closer to the playoffs because then they know who the top seeds are, and the top seeds get the color.
You would think so.
The color was in there long time ago.
Before the season even started. Yeah, I'll send you the reel I made.
I stand by my earlier statement that if the NFL is rigged, it is clearly done by a small board who doesn't care about anyone else, and they must have some deep pockets. Because if there was any other way for it to be rigged, you got to know Jerry would be celebrating with 7 Super Bowl trophies around him.
Right.
You got to know if there's any owner willing to cheat for victory. Right. Let's be honest.
If you look at next year's Super Bowl, which is in New Orleans, they already put out the logo.
They did not. That was a farce. That came off DeviantArt. It was not real. They've not released the logo.
Okay.
There's 8 different ones have come out with 6 different color schemes. It's a farce.
And if the NFL is rigged or scripted, who's writing the script? Because the NFL is owned by 32 owners, right? And
kind of
Goodell is just a pawn of those NFL teams.
They pay him.
Well, they pay him.
Technically,
who's writing the script?
So the NFL, each team is owned by the owners. The NFL is a non-profit organization run by a board.
No, they are profit. They are a profit now.
Change that?
Yeah, a couple years ago they changed it.
When they changed and they made it official, they're an entertainment industry, and they somehow pocketed up with 7 different casinos.
Yes.
who are now major owners in the company, the NFL, but not the teams.
Yes.
Ding dong, you nailed it.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good.
That's with the whole rich get richer.
Yeah. So you go with the logo, then we would see, Ken's Baltimore, because Baltimore is the team that's supposed to be in there to fix the colors. So you guys picking Baltimore, or are you picking Kansas City?
Well, the way that it kind of fades, it could be blue or purple. So
Sure.
you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I'm in the camp of it's going to be Baltimore, Detroit.
Look, I would love a Baltimore-Detroit Super Bowl. I'd understand the want for the Chiefs just because we don't want it to be a Ravens-Niners one, just because we want to believe it's not rigged.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I have to see Mahomes at a Super Bowl one more time in my life, I'm sick. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
My coworkers, I was like, well, we already know who's going to be the halftime show next year, right? Why do we want to see her there at this one, right?
Taylor Swift is the
official. It hasn't been made official. I'm assuming that that's what's in the works here. Hey, let's get her NFL stadiums and get the female audience to start tuning in to pay attention to Taylor. And the next year we'll put her on the Super Bowl.
Tell you what,
it works. Hey, my daughter knows exactly who Taylor Swift is rooting for, and it's not like I told her.
I saw another rumor that was like, I know it's like way far fetched, but how great would it be? I saw a rumor saying that Jason is going to entirely base his comeback next year off one thing. Well, collective things, but one little major player. And that major player rumor was that Travis would top teams to make sure Jason got to play 1 year with him. And so they would come here. Taylor Swift comes back to Philly, is where she belongs as a Philly fan. We make it all the way, and she is the act. It would be the most watched Super Bowl in history by a long shot. You got the brothers who 2 years ago played against each other, now together, and Taylor Swift, who's with one of the you're literally writing money. You're just saying, hey, guess what, guys? Here's a check for $100 million, and I'm just gonna add 3 more zeros because I can. Like that's just how it goes.
But how does Travis get to the Eagles as a tight end? How does that happen?
Trade.
Okay.
Discussion with the team.
He got $20 million for that Pfizer commercial. That's more than the Kansas City Chiefs in a year.
Yeah, because he's a sellout.
It's wild, right?
Bro, wild.
What the government will pay to push things on.
For this one thing I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast that I truly stand by, there is zero reasons that pharmaceuticals should be being advertised for at all. Just that's my personal opinion.
It's not terrible.
Ridiculous. We're one of only 2 countries in the world that allow it.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's only us and New Zealand, and New Zealand is super strict on theirs. We're like, guess what? Take this drug. It may kill you. You might throw up. You might bleed to death. You might have depression. You might commit suicide. And it makes you happy. And it's like,
the side effects are terrible.
Why? Why is that even listed? Why is that a commercial?
Yeah. It's like you have a rash. You take this pill, you'll have explosive diarrhea. You might have a heart attack. But you won't have skin rash.
Yeah, no, it's weird. It's weird. And that's why I'm like, look, Kelsey, I'm cool with all of the State Farm commercials, with the Campbell soup commercials. Pfizer, bud, you just signed a deal with the devil. Because to me, that's a company you shouldn't have any dealings with.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's talk to Brian Westbrook that too, because he's on the Pfizer commercial as well in the local area.
Yes, he is. Yeah. He's one of my most favorite Eagles in the. Surprising to see.
It's cringy, right? It's cringy.
It hurts. It really hurts.
Yeah.
All right, so we're all Baltimore, Detroit, right? Is that where we're writing the script for?
That's
Baltimore,
what I want.
Detroit. Hopefully, those games are on Sunday. We'll watch that and celebrate a Baltimore, Detroit Super Bowl.
Also, we should change our name to the Squawking Eagles script writers. NFL script writers. Imagine how many listens we'll get then.
Right, a lot more.
This is what's happening next year. Bet on it. Man.
So, all right, that for us. I wanted to give a shout out to our new subscriber on Instagram, Drewapalooza. Thank you for joining the podcast. Keep looking out for stuff and excited to have you aboard. That'll do it for me. Miguel,
Not
Mark,
me though. I'm still here for another hour. No,
thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Enjoy the games this week.
You already know. You know how we do. EAGLES.
Eagles.
Go
Go Birds. Hey, Mike, hit that good music, man.